Welcome to Monday on the Vince Coglianese Show. It's Mike Opelka once again in for Vince. Thanks for being here. Hope you had a great weekend. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving. I watched so much stuff. I have to talk about the Macy's parade a little bit later because it was the most watched Macy's parade in the history of Macy's parades. Was it because of Cher? That was pretty awful. Or was it because people were worried that something dumb was going to happen? Something dumb, which did happen. We'll get into that. There is news, of course, on the hostage front. 11 of the released hostages from Hamas are back in Israel, and we're hoping that more Americans will be a part of it. We still have almost 200 hostages being held by these terrorists, and there's much more to talk about on that. Also, I have a story about Amazon and Etsy and what they were selling over the weekend that appeared to be pro-Hamas merchandise. They responded to a few people barking about it, and me one of them, and we'll see. And there also are some incredible clips that I have to share from you just from today's press briefing, where Donald Trump is blamed for everything because he's responsible for everything, right? Yeah, we'll get to that. But over the weekend, there was additional news out of China, and news that always gets my attention, especially when you hear, okay, there may be another virus that's hospitalizing children in China. Then we hear, oh, China's developed this network of ports around the world. Gee, what could that be for? I wonder. And then there is a report of a possible conflict between a U.S. naval ship and Chinese military in the South China Sea. To try and understand all of it, we reached out to our friend Gordon Chang, Gordon G. Chang on Twitter X. If you're not following him, you are missing out on a great and simple education every day. It's just the facts, and it is clear and updated all the time. And Gordon is with us today. Hello, my friend. How are you?
I'm fine, Mike, and thank you so much.
I'm glad you're here, Gordon. Where would you like to start? You want to start with the conflict? You want to start with the reports of the China with this network of ports around the world, or the new virus?
It's really hard to know where to start because there is so much bad news coming out of China. But really the important thing here is that there would be no war on Ukraine if it weren't for China, because China has backed Russia and kept it in the fight. And we can also say the same thing about Iran. Iran would not be able to support the Houthis, the Hezbollah, and the Hamas if it weren't for China's support of Iran. So really what we have is China really setting fires around the world. And that's the context for the other stories that you talked about. Because right now we've got a China which is in distress internally, and I think it's taking it out on the rest of us through causing these problems across the globe.
Is it China's money being spent to buy Russian oil and to buy military products from Iran that is allowing both of those countries to wreak havoc in the regions where they are?
Yes, and it's also China's purchase of sanctioned oil from Iran. In the first 9 months of this year, China's purchases of Iranian oil were 60% above that in 2017, which was the last year before the Trump administration reimposed sanctions on Iranian oil, sanctions which neither the Trump nor the Biden administration has enforced, by the way. But that shows you that China has ramped up its support of Iran, which is giving it the money to fuel the conflict against Israel. So we have China really supporting brutality, atrocities, rape, murder. And we haven't held China accountable. So China's going to continue to try to set the world on fire. So, yeah, the Chinese are monsters, but we've opened the door to that by not stopping them.
So is the answer to trying to pull China back a little bit to impose the sanctions, or at least apply the sanctions that have been imposed? Would that be a help, or is there another route we should take?
Well, that's the first step, to enforce what we've already imposed. But we need to impose more because China's activities against us have been horrific. So, for instance, we've got China's regime supporting the fentanyl trade. These fentanyl producers are large. They're well organized. They couldn't operate in China's near total surveillance state without the approval of the Communist Party. And indeed, some of these fentanyl producers are state-owned. But also, China's diplomats provide cover for the fentanyl producers, and the fentanyl producers and gangs, they launder their money through the Chinese state banking system. So those 70,000 Americans who died last year from doses of illicit fentanyl, that's people who have actually been murdered, because the definition of murder is the deliberate killing of another without justification. And that's exactly what's happened. And until we're willing to come to that horrible acknowledgement, we're not going to be able to settle this, which means more Americans are going to die. We have got to acknowledge that Americans are being murdered.
Well, Gordon, correct me if I'm wrong, but basically 2 weeks ago tomorrow, you had Joe Biden meet with President Xi of China, and we were told out of that meeting, out of that extended conversation, was some sort of understanding or a promise from China that they would be shutting down the fentanyl trade, or at least maybe putting huge restrictions on it. That was Bravo Sierra. Was there any truth in there?
Well, you're absolutely right that's what Xi Jinping promised President Biden. But what that same Xi Jinping promised to President Trump in 2018 was the same. And it's the same thing that Xi Jinping's predecessor promised to Vice President Biden in the Obama administration. So how many times do they have to promise to do something, and yet they're selling record quantities of fentanyl? So, this is at the point where, this is on us. Yeah, I mean, the Chinese are murdering Americans, but we've let them. We know what they're doing, and we continue it. And by the way, to put this more specifically, President Biden knows what's going on, or he has to know. We know that he has the means to stop it. The fact that he's not stopping it means it's okay with him that China is killing 70,000 Americans a year. It's all copacetic. And the American people should be outraged at Xi Jinping, of course, but we should also be outraged at those people that we elected to protect us, who are not protecting us, even though they have the means to do so.
Yeah, they certainly do. And Congress could stand up and demand, just as the media could stand up and make a point of it, too. But you have to have access to the president to be able to ask those questions. Gordon, I referenced that China has now a global network, apparently, of ports that they have gotten control of or access to. And I've been tracking China's naval construction since about 2010. And it has been amazing how many ships they have built that we know about. And I assume there are many, many, many that we do not know about. China's Belt and Road Initiative around the world appears to be yielding great benefits to them with access to ports. Should we not be concerned that China now could have military presence with, submarines as well as boats on the water in all of these ports around the world?
Well, that is the concern, because many of these ports are not economic. They can't sustain themselves, such as the ones in Sri Lanka. And I mentioned Sri Lanka because China took over the Hambantota port, and China actually sent its submarines, and they docked at the Colombo International Container Terminal, which is a Belt and Road project. But, here we have a solution, and that is that China's been building a lot of infrastructure. And, of course, we should be concerned, but a lot of this infrastructure will never pay back. And so China is now got a lot of bad loans on its books, and we should be making sure that the IMF doesn't bail out China indirectly by bailing out countries that took out these Belt and Road loans, which were inadvisable in the first place. The one port that we have to really worry about in China's Belt and Road is in Freeport in the Bahamas, which is within 100 miles of Palm Beach, Florida.
Well, if you combine that port in Freeport in the Bahamas with the possible listening stations built or revitalized in Cuba, that represents a significant intelligence problem to the United States. And I haven't heard that we've shut down the listening stations in Cuba. So that would be priority one for me, I would imagine.
Yeah, there's at least three of them. The Chinese took over Lourdes, which was during the Cold War the Soviet Union's biggest listening station outside of its borders. There's one at Bayou Call, and another one at Santiago de Cuba, and that's the ones that we know about. The Biden administration tried to downplay what's going on there. Cuba's a sovereign state. We can't go out there and just shut them down, but what we can do is we can employ all sorts of sanctions and enforce them against Cuba and China as well, and we're not doing that. So there are things that we can do to make life really miserable for China that's listening into our telephone traffic from those three stations in Cuba.
I wish we would make it miserable for them. Gordon, the other topic I mentioned, the reports of a virus breaking out among children and children being hospitalized in northern China. Are you hearing any more on this? And is this or any other new virus a threat to us from China?
This is a threat until we know about it. I mean, the question is this COVID-23? It probably isn't, Mike. China has told the World Health Organization that there is no novel pathogen involved, but there is a fast spread of disease. I mean, China calls it an immunity gap, quote unquote, which is a cute way of putting it. But the point is, until we know, we should not be allowing arrivals from China or people who have been in China in the last 2 weeks into our country until we can figure this out. If we had done this in December 2019, we would not have had 1.1 million Americans perish from this disease. That's the death toll from the Johns Hopkins Coronavirus Resource Center. We probably wouldn't have been able to stop every coronavirus death, but it would not have been the calamity that it turned out to be if we had taken adopted measures early. And let's remember, there's a guy named Joe Biden who was running for president who criticized President Trump's closing of the borders in January 2020. He called it xenophobic. Well, we've got a lot of Americans who have died and probably wouldn't have if Trump didn't get so much heat from people like Joe Biden who were raising racism. You know, you can claim racism all you want, but Americans have died, and that is the defining factor in this.
Always great and solid information from our friend Gordon Chang, Gordon G. Chang on Twitter. I encourage you to go there, follow him, and read what he's putting out every single day. My friend, I hope you and yours had a great Thanksgiving, and I'm sure we'll talk again in the near future.
Well, the New York Giants won over the weekend, so it was a great Thanksgiving weekend.
The rare occasion. I heard people were mad they screwed up their draft choices with winning, you know. But, you know, a win's a win. Take them when you can get them. Thank you, Gordon. God bless you.
Thanks, Mike.
Always a pleasure. 888-630-9625 is the number. It is the Vince Coglianese Show with me, Mike Opelka, sitting in for Vince. It is 4:25 on this Monday on the Vince Coglianese Show. My name is Mike Opelka, in for Vince one more day. Thank you for being here. So many of you checking in on social media, and you're welcome as well at 888-630-9625 to join the conversation. It's not all serious stuff, because we'd go crazy if it was all serious stuff. I was just talking with the crew here, Dave and Corey, about the holidays. I started noticing the holiday commercials are running, and there is a hilarious commercial. At least I found it funny. Maybe you saw it as well. John Travolta as Santa Claus, but he's reenacting the opening of Saturday Night Fever, and it's for a banking card. I think it's Capital One. What's in your wallet? And at the end of it, he's actually doing the disco dancing on the lighted dance floor from I forget the name of the disco that it happened in, but it is a very clever commercial. And I was very impressed by it, very taken aback by it. But if you've seen it, you know. So we'll get to that. But, you know, we don't need actors and banks to make us laugh. We have politicians And I have to give props to Corey for finding this. This just popped, I guess, earlier today. Apparently, our education secretary, I always want to call him the edumacation secretary because that's how my grandparents used to mock the pronunciation of education when we were going to college. Oh, you're going to be edumacated, aren't you? Yes, I am. The edumacation secretary, Miguel Cardona, said something today that probably gave a lot of people whiplash when they heard it. Go ahead and fire that off.
You know, we're going to set up follow-up calls with every governor we met with to make sure we're available. As I think it was President Reagan said, we're from the government. We're here to help. There are resources there, there's technical assistance there, and there's a playbook that could support the work you're doing. Count on us as a partner in this. Our students are waiting.
Now, the beginning of that, was he holding for applause or laughter or mockery? At the very beginning of that, when the education secretary said, I believe it was Ronald Reagan who said, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. Apparently, the education secretary has never studied history because if he did, he would have known that the correct quote from Ronald Reagan was not a compliment. Go ahead, play it.
I think you all know that I've always felt the 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
Completely clueless. I don't know if Joe Biden is a stupid spreader. You know, they used to say super spreader during COVID. But that is the most tone-deaf use of a Reagan quote ever. Is he ignorant or is it intentional? We'll find out. More to come. Mike Opelka in for Vince Coglianese on WMAL. Happy Monday to you and yours. It is the Vince Coglianese Show on WMAL. Mike Opelka, that's my name. And if you're wondering what catches my attention, every morning I post a list of stories with links to the actual articles at pureopelka.com, pureopelka.com. You can follow me on social media, too. So many of you do, and many of you are checking in on Facebook and Twitter X. I haven't checked Instagram. I'm busy because there's so much going on today. I mentioned this story a couple times, and I should explain what I'm talking about. Amazon and Etsy. If you don't know what Etsy is, it's a place where you can be a small business and sell stuff to everybody. And there were a lot of people in the early days of Etsy, especially like crafters or people that make little bits of artwork or jewelry, etc., who are doing quite well. And Etsy became quite powerful, and you can get pretty much anything you want, just like you can get almost anything you want on Amazon, including in the very near future, you're going to be able to buy Korean cars, South Korean cars. I don't think you want to buy a North Korean car. You'll be able to purchase a car on Amazon. If you think about that, it's kind of bizarro. But Amazon and Etsy got a little bit of a firestorm thrown at them this week when it was discovered that they were selling merchandise that appears to support Hamas. There were T-shirts that said, "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free." Of course, that means Israel has to be eliminated. It's calling for the genocide of everybody that lives in Israel. Specifically, they want the Jews wiped out. And then there were green headbands with Islamic phrases on them. I couldn't read them because I don't read that language, but they look just like what the terrorists wore when they attacked Israel on October 7th. And then there are hats that you could purchase on Etsy that say, "Make Israel Palestine Again." And it looks just like the Make America Great hats, red hats with white embroidery, "Make Israel Palestine Again." These are all horrible. And it's idiotic for Amazon to have to be told that by people. Now, once the story broke and the Daily Mail had the story, Summer Goodkind is the author who posted it, couple of days ago on the Daily Mail website, and you could see the actual products that were for sale. Once this was enraging people enough to where they reached out to Amazon and said, what is wrong with you? Amazon, to their credit, I have to give them credit, they took it down. And I did find they got most of the merchandise down. Now, you can still buy shirts. The vendors changed the content of the shirts. It no longer says from the river to the sea. It just says Palestine will be free. So interesting. They just put the last half of the line in there. But for God knows how long, Amazon and Etsy were selling pro-Hamas merchandise, including those green headbands. And I think you could still get the Make Israel Palestine hats on Etsy, but a lot of people are raising sand about that. And there was one, I did find it because I scoured Amazon when I saw this, when I heard about it. I was so infuriated by it. I scoured Amazon and found a face mask that still said, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. And I thought, how ironic, because the face mask thing is how a lot of these terrorists still walk around wearing face masks to cover their identities. But there is strength in your voice, especially when capitalism is involved, especially when Amazon understands that when people violate basic tenets of decency and the principles of a great society, that the consumer will punish you. All you have to do is look at Bud Light and look at Target. Target is really paying a heavy price, and it doesn't bother me at all. What's happening to Target makes me very happy, especially when they're still pushing the agenda that they're pushing. They're still pushing the woke agenda, and now Santa Claus. There's rainbow Santas everywhere, and I'm sure we have a gender questioning Santa Claus that's coming up. But yeah, it's out there. So I'm happy to see that the free market has strength. And speaking of which, something coming to the Daily Wire on December 1st. I can't play the entire trailer to the movie, but they've made a movie called, I'm sorry, I'm laughing about it, Lady Ballers. Lady Ballers. And it is a comedy intent on showing the absolute idiocracy behind the idiocy behind the gender swapping that's happening when people are saying, well, I know I'm a man, but I want to play against women in women's leagues. You know, we had Leah Thomas, who was allowed to, a man complete with twig and berries, allowed to compete against women and basically win everything. And the guys over at the Daily Wire have put together what appears to be a very funny movie. And maybe we'll play a little bit of the clip of that. And I think this is important. I think taking back the culture is important to bringing some common sense back to the table. We had it from the Daily Wire when they started selling chocolates to deal with Hershey's going woke. You had it from the Daily Wire when Gillette was putting out woke commercials about their razors. You know, talk about the best a man could get. That whole phrase, that whole advertising scheme went away for a while because what's a man? How do you know what a man is? So the guys over at the Daily Wire, Jeremy Bering, put together Jeremy's razors, and he's selling razors and he's selling chocolate, and now he's got a movie. And you can probably see the trailer online. But I think this is very important. I think fighting back in a creative sense, which is what Greg Gutfeld does pretty much every single night on his show, is going to be what saves us. It's going to be what points out to people how insane things have gotten. And, you know, we have Libs of TikTok, which is putting forward some great clips of people who are posting their craziness online. And we have the benefit of seeing them and noticing. For example, there is and I'm going to quote what this person considers themselves to be, a trans non-binary person. Trans non-binary. So how do we translate that? trans non-binary. So they are not they don't consider themselves to be the gender of their biology. They consider themselves to be something else, a different gender. And non-binary means, I guess they go against all the grains. They haven't decided which gender they're going to be. Well, it appears this person, who is a man biologically, claiming to be a woman, has makeup on and lipstick, and although still has a little bit of a mustache, kind of like the same kind of a mustache Prince had. Not really like a Tom Selleck mustache, but more of a Prince mustache. But this is an adult biological male who has discovered religion. Now, religion, that's a good thing. I'm a big fan of religion. Happen to be a Catholic person myself. I think faith can really help you in difficult times and can guide you in making decisions. And this trans non-binary person was so excited about finding faith, they wanted to put it on TikTok and share the news with us. But it's the choice of faith, the choice of religion, that I think might be a problem.
Just started reading the Quran, and I am so excited about it. People thought when I first asked that I just wanted to read it out of curiosity, but I want to read it to study it. I started following somebody on social media that teaches the Quran and hosts a Quran book club for Muslims and non-Muslims, so I'm
Okay, the energy is a little wearing, I know. It reminds me of Dylan Mulvaney. Maybe that's a thing. Maybe if you become this non-binary person, everybody's supposed to have this kind of a pattern. But this person said they've started reading the Quran, and they are now joining a Quran book club with a person who teaches Muslims and non-Muslims. I wonder if they're teaching this person all of the elements of Islam. Well, let's hear a little more.
And non-Muslims, so I'm really excited to start going to that. She was describing the chapter of the bee, and that just blew my mind. Like, the way that she describes things, the way that the Quran describes things actually makes sense to me. And also, did you know that Allah is beyond gender?
I was not aware that Allah is beyond gender. And I'm wondering if you went to, I don't know, any Islamic nation capital and started in this attire with the makeup and the hair and the nose ring and the affectations of the language and the denial of biology and said, Allah is beyond gender. I wonder if you'd be as welcomed as you are here in America. I wonder if you'd be as accepted, if you'd be allowed to explore the depths of whatever it is you're exploring here. But wait, there's more about this person reading the Quran. And I know Thomas Jefferson had a Quran. Yes, Thomas Jefferson read the Quran. He was a student of life. Wasn't necessarily following the teachings of Islam, but this person appears to be very interested in all of it.
Do you know that actually scholars believe that there are two Qurans, the Quran of nature and the Quran, the actual book? And did you know that each chapter is named after a natural phenomenon? I don't know, this whole book is just blowing my mind, and I am so excited. I got sticky notes so that I could mark out things that I was drawn to, and I'm not even through the first chapter, and I already have a bunch of sticky notes. I'm definitely going to have to buy more tabs. I'm honestly...
Now, we're not even through the first chapter of the Quran. Now, maybe you should reserve judgment. I'm just saying, maybe you should get all the way through the project before. It's good that you're reading. I'm pro-reading, but I think this is problematic. There's trouble ahead here.
A whole revolution with myself where
yes.
The way that I describe the universe and the things that I believe in are actually described in the Quran of believing in Allah. And I've never thought that I believed in God before, and now I'm really having a revolution of self of, I think I actually believe in God. If you've been curious, I really recommend it. There are a lot of people who are converting. There's a lot of people who are reading it. I'm not saying I'm going to convert. I'm not saying that I wouldn't.
Now, this is the part that really feels creepy to me. This is a biological male pretending to be a woman who's trying to be coy and cutesy about, I'm not saying I would convert, but I'm not saying I wouldn't. Who knows? Well, there's a meeting for the new members of Islam happening at noon on Friday on the roof of the tallest building in the center of every Islamic republic on the planet. Maybe somebody should tell this person. Maybe a family member.
And I don't know. I know that this is exactly what I need right now. I just wanted to say thank you and just point out how excited I am.
I don't think the Muslim Council is going to hire this person as a Dylan Mulvaney-like influencer. I'm just throwing that out there. I'm doubtful. I'm dubious that that's going to happen. But it is so important that outlets like Libs of TikTok keep sharing those with us, keep sharing these videos with us, because you get to see the fringe. And this is not the mainstream media. This is not the majority of America. The mainstream media loves to tell us that, 5 to 10% of the country is really driving 80% of what's happening. No, it's not. They're fringe. And this person is fringe. And I just hope somebody in their family will get to them soon and maybe teach them. It's like the signs for Queers for Palestine. Does somebody want to tell them it's how you get your head chopped off in these Islamic republics? You walk around with a Queers for Palestine shirt. Yeah, that's not going to work out for you. We have so much to get to. I mentioned some of the silliness that happened on the Macy's Day Parade on Thanksgiving. We'll get to that. Today at the White House, Karine Jean-Pierre, Joe Biden, both addressed the press, didn't really take any questions. Karine did. She got a few questions and obviously twisted the reality and the truth, and we'll get to that. And I also have, coming up next hour, the story of the government wanting to put kill switches in your car. That's already a thing. That's going to happen in 2026 unless something major happens. But limiting your speed? How do you feel about that? Do you believe that it's okay for the government to mandate speed limiters in cars? 888-630-9625 is the number. 888-630-9625. It is 4:54. Mike Opelka is my name. In for Vince Coglianese on the Vince Coglianese Show here on WMAL. I asked a question about speed regulators, but we also were having a little interesting discussion about the Daily Wire movie, Lady Ballers, which is going to be streaming online, I think, December 1st. And John called from Spotsylvania. Hello, John. Welcome to the Vince Coglianese Show. What's on your mind?
Well, Dr. Opelka, I'd like to get your professional opinion.
Yes.
Can I be a binary, non-trans in this world today?
Well, apparently you can be whatever you want. Those are the rules. There are no rules. That's the new rule, is there are no rules, which is like saying the new border is there's no border. And it seems to lead to anarchy and chaos, which apparently is what they want. And that it's just ridiculous. But John, I said I was going to play the whole clip from the Daily Wire film, but I have to play you just a little clip from Lady Ballers, which is the name of the film. This is in the middle of it. Apparently it's a bunch of guys saying they're women playing against women in basketball. I'll just give it a little taste.
Day one of being a girl athlete. I love being a girl.
Two sheroes. We could dominate every woman's sport. Running, swimming, soccer. I said sport, Felix.
Now that's funny. Running, swimming, soccer. Hold on a second. It's a 3-minute clip. It's online. You can see it. Jeremy Bering's got it on his site. I'm sure Daily Wire's got it posted as well. It is the way to attack the left, is by using the culture and comedy against them. And I applaud the effort. I haven't seen the whole thing. I will watch it. I will support it. It's my choice. And I am saying bravo. Bravo to you people at the Daily Wire for standing up and saying we understand it. Thank you, John. I'm up against the clock here. Appreciate you being there. Thank God. I have time to take one more quick one. JT in D.C., you support speed regulators, the government regulating your speed?
I do. And the reason why I do It's because of watching Hellcat, Dodge Hellcat, 700 to 1,000 horsepower on 95 every day, speeding.
Well, we're going to talk about it just around the corner. Thank you for that opinion. Mike Opelka for Vince Coglianese on the Vince Coglianese Show.